The Princess Queen ridiculed her human guard until he unleashed. In the vast, high-tech empire of Ulzaria, Princess Liara was both feared and admired. Her beauty and power were unmatched, and she commanded respect from everyone around her. The people of Ulzaria knew her as a wise ruler, but there was another side to her. Her sharp tongue, her pride, and the relentless cruelty she directed at those she deemed unworthy. Among her many guards, there was one who seemed to be the subject of her latest amusement, a human named Marcus. Marcus had been chosen as the personal guard of Princess Liara, a strange and unexpected assignment. Humans were considered primitive by most alien species, with their soft bodies and limited abilities. Marcus, however, was not an ordinary human. He had been trained in the harshest conditions on Earth, making him a skilled warrior. But despite his impressive skills, Marcus felt out of place in the luxurious, high-tech world of Ulzaria. The princess often ridiculed him in front of her court. She called him weak, mocked his human frailty, and reminded everyone that his kind had never seen the vastness of the galaxy. She would often make cruel jokes about his race, laughing as her courtiers joined in. Her laughter echoed through the halls of the palace, and though the others tried to hide their smiles, Marcus could feel their judgment. One evening, during a grand banquet in the royal hall, Liara stood on the elevated platform, a smirk crossing her lips as she surveyed the crowd. Her eyes landed on Marcus, who stood near the doors, his posture straight and unwavering. "Look at him," Liara said, her voice dripping with mockery. "A human, a mere creature from a backwater planet guarding my life. Tell me, Marcus, do you even know how to wield a real weapon?" Her words were sharp, and the entire room went silent, waiting for Marcus's reaction. Marcus stood still, his hands at his sides, his expression neutral. He had long learned to suppress the anger that burned inside him whenever the princess belittled him. Instead, he focused on his training, pushing the humiliation aside. He had come to Ulzaria with a singular purpose, to prove that humans were not weak, that they were capable of greatness, even in a world full of advanced beings. But for now, he held his tongue. It was not the time to argue. "You may be able to fight in your primitive ways," Liara continued, her voice growing louder, "but you are nothing compared to the warriors of Ulzaria. I have had the greatest of my generals guard me. What makes you think you can protect me from anything?" The courtiers laughed, and Marcus's heart clenched. But his training allowed him to push through the discomfort, to not let the ridicule show on his face. He had been through worse before on Earth, where he had fought to survive in hostile environments far more dangerous than anything Liara could throw at him. As the evening wore on, Marcus stood by the door, the princess and her guests enjoying the banquet without a care for the man who stood silently at the side. He was used to it by now. This was not the first time Liara had mocked him, and he knew it would not be the last. But inside, something began to stir. The longer he endured the ridicule, the harder it became to keep his true feelings hidden. He knew he was capable of so much more than this. He had trained for years, overcoming the harshest conditions Earth could offer. He was not just a guard, he was a warrior. And one day, Liara would see that. The next day, as the sun rose over the palace, Marcus was called to the royal chambers for a new assignment. Liara had requested him personally, and though he had no idea what it might entail, he knew it would not be a simple task. He arrived at her chambers where she sat on her throne, surrounded by her advisors. "Ah, Marcus," she said, her voice smooth and mocking. "You have arrived just in time. I have a little challenge for you." Her eyes gleamed with amusement, as if she already knew what would happen next. "I need you to protect something very valuable to me, a relic that has been in my family for centuries. I'm sure a human like you will be able to handle it. After all, you've proven yourself so capable." Marcus felt a flicker of annoyance but suppressed it. He had learned long ago that letting his emotions show would only fuel the princess's cruelty. He bowed respectfully. "What is the relic, Your Highness?" he asked, keeping his voice even. Liara's smile widened. "A weapon, of course, the weapon that has been passed down through the royal family. It's said to hold immense power. I think a weak human like you won't even be able to touch it, but I'll give you the chance to prove me wrong." The princess's voice was filled with amusement, but Marcus felt a fire in his chest. He had heard whispers about the weapon. It was said to have been created by the first emperor, a piece of technology far beyond what modern Ulzaria could produce. It was a relic of the past, shrouded in mystery, and Liara had kept it locked away, hidden from everyone, until now. "I will guard it with my life, Your Highness," Marcus said, his tone unwavering. Liara nodded, her eyes gleaming with amusement. "Good, you will go to the vault and stand guard there. If anyone tries to take it, you will stop them. I have no doubt that a mere human like you will fail, but do try your best." With that, she dismissed him, and Marcus left her chambers, his mind already focused on the task ahead. As he made his way to the vault, he felt the weight of her words bearing down on him. But he also felt a quiet resolve. This was his chance. He would prove to Liara and to everyone else that humans were not to be underestimated. The vault was deep within the heart of the palace, guarded by advanced security systems and intricate traps designed to keep out anyone who wasn't worthy. But Marcus was no stranger to danger. He had faced impossible odds before, and he had always come out on top. When he reached the vault, he stood before it, his mind racing. He had to be careful. The security systems were no joke, but he was prepared. He carefully bypassed the traps, his hands steady and precise as he worked. It was a challenge, but one he was ready for. Finally, the vault door opened, revealing the weapon that Liara had spoken of. It was a magnificent piece of technology, sleek and shimmering, with intricate designs etched into its surface. Marcus couldn't help but marvel at it for a moment. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. He stepped inside the vault, his heart pounding as he carefully examined the weapon. There was a strange hum in the air, and the weapon seemed to call to him as if it recognized his presence. But just as he reached out to touch it, a movement in the shadows caught his eye. He turned, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon at his side, ready for whatever threat was about to appear. Marcus stood motionless, his eyes scanning the shadows in the vault. He had been trained to sense danger, and his instincts told him that something was wrong. He had just unlocked the sacred vault to guard the weapon, and yet he could feel the hair on the back of his neck rise. There was something in the air, something unseen, but it was there. A faint rustling came from one of the far corners of the room, where a large stone pillar cast a deep shadow. Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon, stepping forward cautiously, his eyes narrowing as he searched the dark corner. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall and cloaked in dark robes. The figure moved swiftly, but there was something strange about the way it moved. It wasn't just the fluidity of its movements. It was the way it seemed to glide across the floor, almost as if the figure was weightless. Marcus's hand instinctively moved toward the weapon at his side, but the figure was faster. In one smooth motion, the figure extended its hand and pointed at Marcus. A soft, low hum echoed in the vault, and suddenly the temperature in the room dropped. Marcus could see his breath in the air, and for a split second the figure's eyes glowed an eerie blue, piercing through the darkness. "Who dares enter the vault of the Ilzarian royals?" the figure demanded, its voice a low, almost musical tone that seemed to vibrate the walls of the room. Marcus remained silent, analyzing the figure before him. It was clearly not a member of the court, and he certainly hadn't expected anyone to show up here. The vault was supposed to be secure, locked away from any intruders. But here he was, face to face with a mysterious stranger, seemingly unbothered by the coldness of the room. "I'm Marcus," he replied calmly, standing tall, not showing any sign of fear. "I am the personal guard of Princess Liara." The figure tilted its head as if considering him. For a moment it said nothing. Then it spoke again, this time with a hint of amusement in its voice. "Ah, so you are the human, the one who is guarding the sacred relic of the royals. How quaint. You're much bolder than I expected." Marcus didn't respond. His eyes remained focused on the figure, his mind working quickly. He wasn't sure who or what this figure was, but he had a feeling it wasn't here to ask questions. He knew he needed to be careful. "You should leave now," Marcus said, his voice firm. "This place is not for intruders. I am sworn to protect it, and I will do whatever it takes to keep it safe." The figure let out a low chuckle, and with a swift movement it lunged at Marcus. Its speed was beyond anything Marcus had ever seen, so fast that he barely had time to react. He drew his weapon and blocked the figure's attack, but the force behind it sent him staggering back. The figure wasn't just fast, it was strong. Its strength seemed unnatural, as if it wasn't entirely bound by the same rules that applied to humans or even most aliens Marcus had encountered. Marcus gritted his teeth and stood his ground, pushing himself back into the fight. His training had prepared him for combat in many forms, but this was unlike anything he had faced before. The figure's movements were graceful, almost fluid, but its strikes were brutal. "Who are you?" Marcus grunted as he parried another blow, feeling the strength of the figure's attack rattling through his body. "You'll know soon enough," the figure replied, a cold, almost sinister smile playing at the corners of its lips. Marcus could feel the tension rising in the room. He wasn't sure if he was facing an assassin sent by someone in the court, or if this figure had its own reasons for attacking. He had to focus, had to figure out how to defeat it. He couldn't let the relic fall into the wrong hands. For a moment, the figure stepped back, observing him, seemingly calculating. The cold mist around them thickened, making the air almost impossible to breathe. Marcus felt his lungs tightening, but he forced himself to focus. "You won't win, you know," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the rising fear. "I'm not like the others you've fought. I'm human and I'm strong." The figure's eyes glowed brighter, a flicker of recognition crossing its face. It seemed amused by his words but didn't laugh. Instead, it said, "Strength means little when you are up against something that cannot be killed by ordinary methods. I am not bound by the same laws you are. You will see." Before Marcus could react, the figure disappeared into the mist, vanishing from sight. Marcus spun around, searching the room for any sign of movement. His heart was racing, and the adrenaline surged through his veins. He couldn't let his guard down, not for a second. He stood still, listening, waiting for any sound, any sign of the figure's return. Seconds stretched into minutes, and the tension in the air grew unbearable. But still, nothing happened. Just when Marcus thought the figure had vanished for good, the sound of soft footsteps echoed behind him. He turned quickly, but this time the figure didn't attack. Instead, it spoke, its voice colder now, tinged with something darker. "You think you can stop me? You think you can guard this vault against forces far older and more powerful than your human mind can comprehend? You are nothing more than a plaything in the hands of forces far beyond you." Marcus's grip tightened on his weapon. "I won't let you take it," he said, his voice firm. "Not while I'm standing." The figure stepped forward, its eyes glowing fiercely in the dim light. "Then prepare yourself, human," it said softly, almost pityingly. "For this is only the beginning. What you are guarding is far more than a mere weapon. It is the key to a power you cannot even imagine, and I will have it." With those words, the figure lunged at him once again, but this time Marcus was ready. He had trained for moments like this, moments when everything seemed impossible, when all hope seemed lost. He had learned how to survive when the odds were stacked against him. This would be no different. He fought with everything he had, using his speed and his mind to counter every strike, every movement of the figure. It was a battle of wills, a battle for control of the sacred relic that held the key to so much. Marcus knew this was his moment to prove himself, not just to Liara, but to the entire galaxy. As the fight raged on, Marcus began to understand the true nature of the battle. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future. The battle continued, each strike from the figure pushing Marcus further back. His body was beginning to ache with exhaustion, but his mind stayed sharp, his focus unwavering. He had to defeat this figure, not just for his survival, but for the safety of the weapon and the princess. He was the last line of defense. The figure's speed was nearly impossible to match, its movements flowing like water, quick and unpredictable. It shifted from one place to another, and Marcus had barely enough time to react. His every effort to counter was met with an equally swift and deadly blow, but Marcus was used to adversity. On Earth, he had learned to fight against impossible odds, trained in every kind of environment where survival depended on wit, skill, and raw determination. His experience with unpredictability and danger was the one thing that kept him grounded. Just as he prepared for another incoming strike, a surge of energy pulsed through the room. The weapon, the sacred relic Liara had entrusted him to protect, began to hum softly. The vibrations felt like a deep heartbeat, echoing through the walls of the vault. Marcus hesitated, his eyes flicking toward the weapon. The figure noticed the change, its eyes narrowing, sensing something had shifted in the air. It too turned its attention to the relic, its expression betraying a flicker of uncertainty. For a brief moment, the two combatants stopped. The room was filled with a tension so thick it could almost be touched, the only sound the soft hum of the weapon growing louder. "Do you feel it?" The figure's voice was sharp, almost disbelieving. "The power within it." "You don't know what you're guarding." Marcus didn't answer. His heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his focus on the relic. There was something about it that felt different now, something more than just its physical form. It seemed alive, and it was responding to the energy in the room, to the battle that was being fought for it. The figure tilted its head, studying Marcus. "You're beginning to understand, aren't you?" it said, its voice low and almost conspiratorial. "This is more than just a weapon. It is a key to the past, a key to a power that no one, not even the gods, should have access to. You human have no idea what you've unleashed." The words sent a cold shiver down Marcus's spine. He had always known the weapon was powerful, but hearing it described in such a way made him realize that the stakes were far higher than he had ever imagined. He couldn't let this figure get its hands on it, not if it was truly as dangerous as it seemed. Without warning, the figure lunged once again, its movements impossibly fast. Marcus barely managed to dodge, but the blow grazed his arm, leaving a sharp sting that reminded him of his vulnerability. He gritted his teeth, pushing the pain aside. He couldn't afford to focus on that now. As the figure attacked again, Marcus made a decision. He wasn't going to win this fight by simply reacting to his opponent's moves. He needed to take control. He needed to strike first. With a sudden burst of speed, Marcus dashed forward, catching the figure off guard. For the first time in the fight, he was able to land a solid blow, his weapon striking the figure's side. The impact was satisfying, but it didn't seem to slow the figure down. It recovered instantly, its eyes glowing brighter than ever, the blue light illuminating the room in an almost ethereal glow. The figure looked at Marcus, its gaze cold and calculating. "You think you can stop me? You think you can protect this relic? You are nothing more than a pawn in a game much larger than you realize." But Marcus didn't back down. He stepped forward, his eyes locked on the weapon, now fully aware that this was no longer just a physical battle. It was a battle of wills, a struggle to control a power that neither he nor his enemy fully understood. The room was heavy with the power of the weapon, and as Marcus reached out toward it, he felt a strange connection, as though the relic was calling to him, recognizing something within him. His hand brushed against the surface of the weapon, and immediately a surge of energy coursed through him, unlike anything he had ever felt. It was as though the weapon was alive, and now it was alive within him. The figure recoiled, its eyes widening in alarm. "No," it shouted, but it was too late. The weapon's energy had already begun to bond with Marcus, infusing him with power beyond human comprehension. It wasn't just the weapon itself. It was something deeper, something ancient, coursing through his veins. Marcus felt a rush of strength, of purpose, unlike anything he had ever experienced. His vision sharpened, his mind cleared. He could feel the presence of the weapon inside him, guiding his every move, every breath. He understood now why Liara had kept it hidden away. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a source of power, of unimaginable potential, and it was meant for someone worthy, someone like him. The figure stepped back, its expression one of both awe and fear. "You shouldn't have done that, human," it hissed. "You have no idea what you've just awakened. You are not meant to wield such power. You are not capable of controlling it." But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He could feel the energy swirling within him, the weapon's power now coursing through his every fiber. The time for defense was over. He was no longer the guard standing in front of the weapon. He was its chosen bearer, and it was his to control. With a swift, fluid movement, Marcus turned toward the figure, his hand raised. A burst of energy shot from his palm, striking the figure square in the chest. The figure gasped in surprise, its body thrown back by the force of the blast. It hit the wall with a crash, crumpling to the floor in a heap. Marcus stood over it, his breath steady, his eyes focused. The power of the relic was his now, and he could feel its influence over him. But he was still in control. He had to be. There was no room for weakness. The figure stirred on the floor, groaning as it struggled to rise. You don't know what you've done," it muttered weakly, its voice filled with frustration and fear. "You've awakened something far older, far more dangerous than you realize." Marcus looked down at the figure, his expression cold. "Then I guess it's a good thing I'm ready for it." He turned away from the defeated figure, his focus now on the weapon. He reached out, and for the first time he truly understood it, not just as a weapon, but as a part of him, a power that had chosen him as its rightful bearer. As the figure struggled to get back to its feet, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. The battle had only just begun, and whatever threat lay ahead, he was ready for it. The silence in the vault was deafening. The figure, now lying motionless on the floor, was a far cry from the dangerous adversary it had been just moments ago. Marcus stood over it, still feeling the remnants of the power that had surged through him, a power he hadn't fully understood until now. The weapon, which had once been a simple relic, was now a part of him, its energy flowing through his veins like an unstoppable current. It was almost as if it had chosen him, recognizing something within him, something that made him worthy of wielding it. For a moment, Marcus took a deep breath and allowed himself to process what had just happened. His mind raced, replaying the battle over and over. He had won, against an enemy far stronger than himself, but at what cost? What had the weapon truly done to him? Was it a blessing or a curse? The figure groaned on the floor, still alive but weakened. Marcus turned his attention to it. The figure's eyes glowed faintly, its body slowly rising from the ground with a hiss of pain. It stared at Marcus, and for the first time there was fear in its eyes. "You've awakened something beyond your control, human," it said, its voice rasping. "You have no idea what you've done. The power you now possess, it is not meant for you. It will consume you just as it has consumed countless others before." Marcus stepped forward, his expression cold and unwavering. "I don't care what it has consumed. I'm in control now, and I won't let anyone take this power from me." The figure sneered, its lips curling in disgust. "You think you're in control? That's the mistake every fool makes when they first wield such power. It's already too late for you. You'll see. You'll all see." Marcus didn't respond. Instead, he turned his attention back to the weapon, still glowing faintly on the pedestal. He reached for it, but this time he didn't feel the surge of energy that had filled him before. It was as if the weapon had settled, as if it was no longer seeking to dominate him, but to merge with him. He felt a sense of calm, and for the first time since he had entered the vault, he allowed himself to relax. His mind cleared, and he focused on the task ahead. The figure had told him that this power would consume him, but Marcus knew that wasn't true. He wasn't like the others who had failed. He was different. He had survived the harshest environments, and now he had a weapon that could change everything. As he stood there contemplating his next move, a voice echoed from behind him. "You are truly something else, Marcus." He turned to see Princess Liara standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and disbelief. She had clearly heard the commotion from outside, but it was obvious that she hadn't expected to see him standing here victorious. "Princess," Marcus said, his voice steady, "it's done. The weapon is safe, and the threat has been dealt with." Liara's eyes flickered between Marcus and the defeated figure on the floor. Her expression was unreadable. "You've killed it." "It's not dead," Marcus replied, "but it won't be able to harm anyone for a long time. I've made sure of that." Liara nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving him. "And the weapon, what is it truly?" Marcus hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I don't fully understand it yet, but it's more than just a weapon. It's a source of power, something ancient. It's not something that can be controlled easily, but I can feel it inside me. It's like it's become a part of me." Liara stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied Marcus. "You sound different. Something about you has changed." "I have changed," Marcus admitted. "I can feel it. This power, it's not just a weapon. It's something far greater than that, but I won't let it control me. I will control it." For a moment, Liara said nothing. She seemed lost in thought, her eyes flickering with a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. Then she looked back at the figure on the floor. "What was that thing, and why was it trying to take the weapon?" "It's something older than you can imagine," Marcus said, his voice grim. "That figure, it's part of a larger force. A group of ancient beings who have been searching for this weapon for centuries. They believe it holds the key to their power, and now that it's awakened, they'll stop at nothing to get it back." Liara's eyes widened. "Then we're not safe. You're not safe." "You don't understand what you've done, Marcus. If they find out what you've done, they'll come for you, and for me." Marcus clenched his fists. "Then we'll be ready for them. I won't let them take it." Liara shook her head, her expression a mixture of concern and disbelief. "You don't understand, Marcus. They won't stop. These beings, they've lived for centuries, maybe longer. They have technology and power far beyond anything you've seen. And you're just one human. What makes you think you can stop them?" "I'm not just any human," Marcus said, his voice firm. "I've already survived the impossible. I've trained for this. And now I have the power to protect you and this empire. I won't fail." Liara studied him for a long moment before speaking again. I see that you're not the same man who first arrived here, but you're also not the same as the men who came before you. You've touched something dangerous, something that could destroy us all. I won't let it destroy me, Marcus said, his voice filled with determination. But I can't do it alone. I'll need your help. We have to prepare for what's coming. Liara's gaze softened for a brief moment before she nodded. I will help you, Marcus, but you must understand, this power is not something that can be taken lightly. It will change everything. And once it's unleashed, there may be no turning back. Marcus looked at her, his eyes filled with both resolve and uncertainty. Then we'll face it together. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. With that, Liara stepped forward, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. Together, she repeated softly, but you must promise me one thing, Marcus. No matter how powerful this weapon makes you, you must never lose yourself. Don't let it control you. You are more than the power you wield. Marcus met her gaze, his eyes filled with understanding. I promise, Princess, I won't lose myself. As the two of them stood in the vault, a new understanding between them, the air felt different. It was as if the weight of what had just happened was settling on their shoulders. The weapon, the power it held, and the dangers that lay ahead were now part of their shared destiny. But Marcus felt ready. He had faced impossible odds before, and now, with Liara by his side, he would face whatever came next. He wasn't just a guard anymore. He wasn't just a human. He was the protector of this empire, and he would fight with everything he had to defend it. The days that followed the battle in the vault were tense. Marcus had seen the weapon for what it truly was, a force far beyond human understanding. He could feel its power coursing through him, but he knew better than to trust it completely. The weapon was ancient, and its origins were shrouded in mystery, yet it was undeniably a part of him now. Liara had been cautious, as she had every right to be. She had witnessed the change in him, felt the difference in his presence. He wasn't the same human who had first entered the palace, struggling to find his place among the high-ranking officers and dignitaries. He had become something else, something more. Something she wasn't sure she fully understood. Despite her concerns, Liara had agreed to work with Marcus. Together, they began to prepare for what was to come. The enemy that had attacked the vault was just one part of a much larger threat. The figure in the vault had warned Marcus of the ancient beings seeking the weapon. If those beings were as powerful as they seemed, it would be a challenge unlike any other. Marcus spent long hours in the palace's war room, poring over maps and reports, strategizing with Liara's advisors. He had learned from his time on Earth that knowledge was just as important as strength. Understanding the enemy, knowing their weaknesses, could give them the edge they needed to survive. Liara watched him from a distance, noticing the changes in his behavior. He was more focused, more determined. But there was something else, something subtle in the way he carried himself. The weapon had transformed him, not just physically, but mentally as well. He wasn't just a protector anymore, he was a leader. But Liara couldn't help but wonder, how long would he be able to keep control? The power he wielded was vast, and it had already begun to change him. There was no telling what would happen if he truly embraced it. Would he remain the man she had come to trust, or would the weapon consume him, as the figure had predicted? As the days passed, Marcus and Liara began to see signs of the coming storm. The palace received reports of strange occurrences, ships disappearing in the far reaches of space, unmarked vessels appearing near the outer colonies. Whispers began to spread of a force gathering, a shadow that loomed on the horizon, and it was clear to both of them that the enemy was closing in. One evening, as Marcus stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out over the city, Liara joined him. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city below. The beauty of the moment was almost enough to distract him from the looming threat. Almost. "You're quiet tonight," Liara said, her voice soft as she stepped up beside him. "What's on your mind?" Marcus didn't immediately answer. He gazed out over the city, lost in thought. The power inside him had been growing stronger, more pronounced with each passing day. He could feel it like a pulse in his chest, urging him to act. But he wasn't sure if he was ready to fully embrace it. It scared him the way it sometimes whispered to him, offering solutions that seemed too easy, too dangerous. "I'm just trying to prepare," Marcus finally replied, his voice steady. "I know they're coming, I can feel it." "We have to be ready." Liara studied him for a moment, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. "And what about you, Marcus? Are you ready?" The question hung in the air, and Marcus knew exactly what she meant. The weapon, the power inside him, was he truly ready to wield it, to lead them into battle against an enemy that seemed insurmountable? The fear of losing himself, of becoming something he couldn't control, gnawed at him. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I won't stop. Not now, not when everything is on the line." Liara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle yet firm. "You don't have to do this alone, Marcus. I'm with you. We all are." Marcus nodded, grateful for her support. He had come to rely on her, not just as a princess, but as an ally. They had become more than just the protector and the protected. They were partners now, bound by a shared responsibility to protect their people. But Marcus knew that the true test was coming. The enemy was closing in, and when they arrived, there would be no turning back. The weapon inside him was growing stronger, and with it, the pressure to use it. He had to make a choice. Could he control it, or would it control him? Days later, the first sign of the enemy came. A fleet of ships, dark and foreboding, appeared at the edge of the Ilzarian system. They were unlike anything the royal fleet had ever seen, sleek, silent, and far too powerful to be anything but a threat. Marcus stood in the command center, his heart pounding as he watched the fleet grow larger on the holographic display. Liara stood beside him, her expression unreadable. "They've come," Marcus said, his voice low and tense. "I knew it would be soon." Liara's gaze never left the screen. "We're outnumbered. Our fleet isn't ready for this." "We don't need to be ready," Marcus replied. "We need to be smart." Liara turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "What are you planning?" Marcus's jaw clenched. "I'm going to confront them. I'll draw them out. If I can get close enough, I can destroy their flagship. If I do that, the rest of the fleet will scatter." Liara shook her head, her worry evident. "Marcus, you can't." "I have to," he interrupted, his tone final. "If I don't, they'll destroy everything. This is the only way." Liara hesitated, then stepped closer to him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "I trust you, Marcus, but promise me one thing, come back. Don't let the power take you." Marcus looked down at her hand, then up into her eyes. For a moment, he could feel the weight of the weapon inside him, urging him to act. He could feel its call, the power that promised victory, but he didn't want to lose himself. Not yet. "I promise," he said, his voice firm. "I'll come back." With that, he turned and walked out of the command center, leaving Liara behind, watching with a mixture of fear and hope in her heart. Marcus boarded the ship that would take him into the heart of the enemy fleet, his mind racing. He could feel the power of the weapon inside him, pulsing with every heartbeat. He was ready, he had to be. There was no other choice. The battle was about to begin, and Marcus knew that the fate of the Empire, and of everything he had come to care for, was in his hands.